In life, really all things, there's not too many absolutes. What was the quote from the Star Wars movie? Only Siths deal in absolutes. And I always I'm not too much of a Star Wars nerd, but I always kind of came back to that. There just aren't too many absolutes. I mean, outside of murder or wearing Crocs in public, unless you're a nurse or a toddler, there aren't too many things that you should say, I would never do that, or take a hardline stance against and say, I'm never doing that. And it goes for football too. There are coaches who are just so set in their ways with things. They'll say things like, I'm never going to take transfers. We don't take transfers. Dave Wanstead, for example, pretty strongly against transfers. The opinion, his opinion, the opinion of his staff was that everybody transfers for a reason. Why should you take on somebody else's problem? And there's a lot of truth to that. A lot of transfers aren't worth it. But even if you don't consider it, then you're missing out on someone who could possibly help your team. Pat Narduzzi doesn't want to build his team and his program on transfers, but he's taken them. He's taken 3 so far this spring, and he possibly could take 4. And they're players who can help the team, some this year, some next year. And that's the thing. Coaches get so set in their ways. So many coaches refuse to change or consider other ideas, and for some that kind of works, but for the great majority of coaches, you have to be willing to adapt, because if you're stuck in your ways and you refuse to change, you eventually will fail. If you can adapt, you can win. You can handle adversity and you can adjust to it, and you can win. Transfers for Pitt this spring have brought quarterback competition, depth on the defensive line, a potential starter defensive end next year, and maybe a starting wide receiver too. And that's just this year's transfers. A couple years ago, a pretty good quarterback came to Pitt via transfer and helped them win enough games to get to a bowl. If you're closed to that idea, if you're so set in your ways that you say, we will absolutely never take any transfers, and in the wake of some of this transfer news at Pitt, I've seen some fans saying that, say, I don't want to deal with transfers. I don't want to take those guys on my team. I don't want somebody else's problem. If you're closed out on that, you can miss out on some players and maybe cost yourself some victories. Where's the 2013 Pitt team without Tom Savage? They were already 6-6. That was all they could do, and then 7-6 eventually with the bowl game. What if they didn't have them? It's like Moneyball. You adapt or you die. Does Pat Narduzzi want 4 transfers every year? Probably not. But if they can help, he'd be a fool not to take them.